Welcome to this Q&A. Every so often we receive a question pertaining to the 10 kings in Revelation 17 verse 12. It says there, Revelation 17 verse 12, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast." Well, most assume that these 10 kings are 10 European nations. We here, this ministry, have a different understanding. Instead of viewing these as 10 European nations, we believe that these are likely 10 Middle Eastern or Arab nations. Now, how do we come to this conclusion? Well, Psalms 83 verse 3 offers one clue. They're in Psalms 83. And by the way, Psalms is prophetic. Many people don't realize that. And here we find one such psalm. Psalms 83 verse 3 says, "They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacle of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab, the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also is joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot." Now, according to this psalm, these 10 nations will form a league or confederacy to obliterate the nation of Israel. Now, the first question we must ask is, have we seen such a confederacy during Israel's history? Or from what we can find, the answer is no. There's nothing historically showing that this has already happened, meaning that this psalm is likely prophetic. The other amazing thing about this prophecy is that the 10 nations listed are all Arab or Muslim nations today. We list the possible identity of these nations in the Restorationist Study Bible. In the footnote on Psalms 83 verse 3, we show that Edom represents southern Jordan, the Ishmaelites represents the Arabs, the Hagarenes represents Egypt, Gebal represents Lebanon, Ammon represents northern Jordan, Amalek represents the Sinai Peninsula, the Philistines represents the Gaza Strip, Tyre represents Lebanon, Asher represents Syria and Iraq, and the children of Lot represents Jordan. Now, what do we hear from most of these nations today? Many of them openly denounce Israel as a nation, and some have even called for her annihilation. For example, we find this from the Ayatollah of Iran on December 15, 2000. He said these words, "Iran's position, which was first expressed by the Imam, is that the cancerous tumor called Israel must be uprooted from the region." A month later, this man said this. He said, "The foundation of the Islamic regime is opposition to Israel, and the perpetual subject of Iran is the elimination of Israel from the region." There's no doubt that the small nation of Israel is surrounded by enemies, by those who would like to see the destruction of this state and the Jewish people. According to Walid Shobat in his book, God's War on Terror, he says this, "In 2002, a plan for the reestablishment of the caliphate was written by the Guiding Helper Foundation entitled The Plan for the Return of the Caliphate. According to the plan, the caliph would be assisted in his rule by a 10-member council of assistant caliphs. These assistants, or council members, are similar to ministers in many of today's government." It's important to note that this author was once a Muslim terrorist who later, through the help of his wife, converted to Christianity. So not only does the Bible indicate a 10 Arab nation confederacy, but we find this same effort being made by some on the Islamic side. Now, in addition to Psalms 83, Daniel also provides some evidence for the 10 kings being of Arab descent. In Daniel chapter 2, we find this. Daniel chapter 2, verse 41 says, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay." Goes on to say, "And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken." Or while we find strength within the Arab nations today, we also see much division. For example, there is civil conflict currently in both Iraq and Syria. According to most scholars, the Arab people are descended from Ishmael. Now, what do we know about Ishmael? or in Genesis chapter 16, verse 12, we find a description of this man. Genesis chapter 16, verse 12 says, "And he shall be a wild man, his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren." So we see here that the Bible prophesies that the seed of Ishmael would be in constant struggle or conflict, which seems to again describe the 10 toes of Daniel, which also correspond to the 10 kings of Revelation. So based on the evidence, we again believe that the 10 kings mentioned in Revelation are likely 10 Arab nations who will form a confederacy someday with the man of sin, or the anti-Messiah, for the purpose of Israel's annihilation. Well, I pray that this word has been a blessing to you, and as always, we would encourage you to prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. Until next time, may Yahweh bless. Bye-bye.